Are we recording? All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us this lovely Thursday, September evening to talk about government contracting and what I keep calling, because someone else called it this, and there's even an official term for it, disadvantaged business entity status. There are certifications you can get at the state level, certifications that your small business can get at the federal level that can provide, if you are a woman or a person of color-owned business, some advantages in terms of pursuing contracts. So that's what we're here to learn about today. We have 4 great micro sessions, 10 to 20 minutes, that'll cover that. We're going to start off with Leslie Miller from Washington PTAC, the Procurement Technical and Assistance Center, giving us an overview of government contracting. We'll also hear from 2 different government contractors who are in the great, fabulous, and gorgeous community of Kitsap, Lydia Wilson with KLB Enterprises, Roger Newton with Newton Building and Development. And then we've got some alphabet soup for you that the state of Washington is going to help us with. OMWBE, Office of Minority Women and Business Enterprises, I hope. Okay, good. Amal Joury is going to talk to us about what state certification looks like. Then as we hit about 7:10, we're going to talk about federal certifications for things like 8A status and other certifications, because I think there are some other certifications. But before we do that, we're going to hear from some folks from the city of Bremerton. And I am not anything like the great Faye Flemister, who is who usually MCs some of these events and has been such an amazing person to work alongside. She's under the weather. I'm Joe. I run the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, and we partner with the city of Bremerton's Racial Equity Advisory Committee. I think I put those letters in order. So let's go to Sarah Van Gelder for a welcome and hello and more.
Thank you so much, Joe, and so glad that, that you all could all be part of this. We are very excited at the City of Bremerton's Racial Equity Advisory Committee to be partnering with the Kitsap Economic Development Association on these forums. We were founded a little over a year ago. Councilwoman Leslie Doggs had a major part to play in getting our racial equity group started. We were started by the City of Bremerton Council to work as citizens alongside members of the City Council to see what we could do to make the City of Bremerton and Bremerton government more inclusive and more equitable. And this series of workshops is one of the ways that we've been going about doing that. We particularly wanted to start with business because we are very aware that with the COVID pandemic that businesses have been suffering tremendously, and especially businesses that are owned and operated by people of color. So we were recognizing that a city can also make choices to try to support their communities of color who are business owners or potential business owners, and that this is a really important opportunity for us to do that. So welcome everyone, and I want to introduce Councilwoman Leslie Doggs, who I referenced just a moment ago. I feel very privileged to serve on this committee with Leslie. I've been learning a lot from her about how the city operates, and just really appreciate her leadership.
First of all, I'm Leslie Doggs, Bremerton City Council. I am the chair of the Race Equity Advisory Committee. And on behalf of the City of Bremerton, on behalf of the Race Equity Advisory Committee, I want to say thank you for being here today and welcome to this forum. We're excited to have you here, and hopefully we can teach you a few things along the way. Again, welcome and thank you for joining us and being part of this forum. And I also want to thank our partners, KITA and PTAC, for this forum as well, as they're partnering with us. So enjoy and thank you again.
Thank you, Councilwoman and Sarah. Really appreciate what the City of Bremerton is doing to help this group of citizens, and in particular, those businesses. I am here to kind of go through the evening and talk about and introduce folks. I am the coordinator for the Washington Procurement Technical Assistance Center program at KITA, and we do have counselors and many programs. There's training, it's all currently virtual. There are resources, there's one-on-one counseling virtually, on the phone, whatever. We can look at your contracts. We can actually look at an RFP with you and tell you if that is going to work for you. The only stipulation is that you must be a PTAC client, which is just a matter of filling out an online form at this website, washingtonptac.org. And then I get a notice if you're in Kitsap or on the Olympic Peninsula that you have asked to be a client, and we follow up with you. We do encourage you to check our calendar at kitsapeda.org or the statewide calendar for whatever classes and events are on there. We think they're great. Hopefully they're beneficial to you. And you'll learn more about OMWBE, but they have a lot of great resources there, as well as the list of their certified firms and opportunities. So KITA and PTAC are here to help your small business learn how to sell to the government, and it is no cost to you. So we encourage you to sign up. There is a poll that you should be seeing, and if you can start answering those questions, I should have done them as separate polls, but you're going to be able to scroll down for all 4 questions. So if you can do that at your leisure, that would be great. And first on our program, Leslie Miller retired once from the PTAC program, but she just couldn't stay away. So she is back, and now she is focused on the Olympic Peninsula and part of our team at KITA for PTAC. So Leslie brings a lot of experience and background and a great perspective, and she is going to lay the groundwork on what it means to sell to the government in general. So Leslie, take it away.
Thank you for inviting me tonight. It's actually really great to see some faces of the Kitsap team, more than just my regular PTAC colleagues. So tonight's going to be a 30,000-foot flyover and a reality check on what it takes to do government contracting. So, and I also would like to thank KITA, the Kitsap Economic Development Agency, the City of Bremerton Race Equity Advisory Committee, and my colleagues from Washington PTAC. So let's be realistic about what it takes to do government contracting. There are a lot of who, what, when, where, why, and how. And in order to delineate from one to the other, your best bet is to tap into PTAC and make sure that you get organized and develop a checklist. So if you are looking to get into government contracting, there's a realization that all aspects of your company are involved in government contracting, and it doesn't matter if it's local, city, state, federal contracting, your legal department, your technology, your HR, sales and marketing, and production and service. They will all come into play on government contracting. So before you start your business, you need to do your homework. You need good legal and accounting counsel. If you are a proprietor, do not use your Social Security number. You can get a federal tax ID number very easily on the IRS website. Know the differences in corporate structures, LLC as opposed to a S or a C Corp. The bottom line is liability and taxes. So you need to pay attention to those. Let's talk about accounting. You should have a business plan. And the reason for that is that also includes something called cash flow projections. And if you're going to do government contracting, you need to experiment with all the what if scenarios. What's your revenue? What's your cost? What's the projection over the next year? Can you actually perform a contract? So a business plan will be critical, and our friends at SCORE or the Small Business Development Centers will be able to assist you. One of the big things that we want to talk about is QuickBooks. QuickBooks is a really simple, easy, very intuitive accounting system. However, it does not have the controls you need other than just a really simplified audit trail. But if you're going to be doing government contracting, you'll be expected to deliver, some reports, either for applications or, other things. And so don't be surprised if you need to upgrade your accounting system. And speaking of accounting systems, a lot of agencies use different kinds of methods to bill the government. If you're dealing with the Department of Defense, you have to deal with wide area workflow. That is it's an online web-based process. Sorry about that. Online web-based process to submit your billing. And if you're working with the Forest Service or whatever, you need to know and understand the process to submit your bills and to get paid. And lastly, under accounting, you need to know that if you're doing production or manufacturing, cost accounting is a big deal to the federal government, and they actually have federal rules and regulations in regards to how to allocate direct and indirect costs. So, if you have any questions about FAR 31, we can explain a lot of that to you. If you're doing business in the state of Washington, first you have to open your business, get your federal tax ID number, and then register with the Secretary of State, the Department of Commerce, understand the licensing licensing requirements, employee issues, city and county licensing, insurance, and bonding. All of this comes into play on any level of government contracting. You have to be a legitimate business first. So here's my favorite topic, technology. The days are gone when people used to submit paper bids, and now everything is online and digital. And if you don't know how to deal with that, you really need to figure out if you're going to do government contracting, because you either need to get educated on how to do things, or you need to hire somebody that has that capability. The other issue, which I am also involved with, is high-speed internet. If you live in a rural community and you do not have broadband internet, that can work against you, for your billing processes, uploading documents, whatever it is. So you have to consider that also. I had some clients that were loggers out of up in the Okanagan area, and they had to drive into town to get the internet and get their billings and stuff, and it was really tedious. The other thing is getting a real email address, something like govsales@mycompany.com. And there's so many registrations that you have to complete and understand that, if you use Yahoo, Gmail, or Hotmail, or AOL, odds are that your email will not get through the firewalls on the government agencies. So you need to look sophisticated enough to have your own domain name and a dedicated email for government activity. And then the rest is pretty simple. Get your antiviruses, know how to zip and unzip, figure out what the cloud is, check your spam filters. But most importantly, The Department of Defense has a cybersecurity maturity model certification that is coming to fruition. And we have a couple experts within our Washington PTAC on Kitsap. And Terry, he'll talk to you later, but we have ongoing classes on this topic. Okay, let's talk about HR issues. Number one, you need an employee handbook with an affirmative action policy in it. And you have to realize that everyone in your company is under scrutiny from the federal government. You need to know what debarred is, also known as blacklisted. If you have been convicted of defrauding the federal government, you will be prohibited from doing any government contracting. And that includes companies and employees. So if you're hiring a hotshot project manager for a big project and it comes to realization that he was blacklisted, you could jeopardize your contract by having him in a place of responsibility on that contract. Do you hire felons? Felons can work for you. You just have to submit their criminal records and fingerprints. If you're a roofing company and you're doing work at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and some of your roofers have rough backgrounds, they would never get through the front gate if we didn't have this policy where you have to submit that information. And then lastly, for HR, we have hub zones, which is a geographical location and certification. And that requires a lot of record keeping by HR because you have to validate every employee with proof of residency. Okay, moving on to sales and marketing. Number one rule is do not take the shotgun approach to marketing. And you need to develop a marketing plan, but before you can do the marketing plan, you need to do your market research. And if you're stretched pretty thin, we recommend that perhaps you bring in a marketing intern from a local college, and they can kind of go through the process. And PTAC can give you some resources to investigate to do your research. Understand that marketing materials for government agencies have to meet their requirements, not yours. And so it's going to take some time and effort to pull things together so that they will actually read it. Pay attention to networking, either in person or, virtually. And, just because you build this wonderful website, you have all these wonderful handouts, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pay attention to you. And when you do your marketing, there's a number of things that you need to do that to include, including your cage code, your DUNS number, your UBI, NAICS code. And they spoke earlier about alphabet soup. Well, the government is the master of alphabet soup. And if you don't understand any of these acronyms, get in touch with PTAC and we can walk you through this scenario. We have some really terrific experts out of Kitsap again that can help you target specifically to the US Navy if that's your target. Okay, let's talk about production and service. American made, that's a federal priority. Where are you getting your materials? Are you sourcing them out of Canada, or is it out of a Middle Eastern hotspot? You have to know and understand the restrictions on sourcing those materials based on political conditions. And you are required to have a quality assurance manual. So now there's two things that a small business will have to have, if they're going to do federal government contracting, an employee handbook, and a quality assurance manual. Let's say that you're not into production, but you're a service provider, catering, accounting, engineering, and they want professional service providers. If you have a CPA, a CMA, a CFE, CIA designation as an accountant, that's good. If you're a PE as a civil engineer, that's terrific. If you belong to the American Institute of Architects, that's to your advantage. So that they're looking for professional certifications. Okay, so now let's talk about doing business with the state of Washington. And we have 3 areas today that I'm going to go over. And we're going to talk about the Washington Department of Enterprise Services, who is kind of like the Amazon to the state of Washington as far as supplying things go. Number 2 is OMWBE, and we'll leave most of this to Amal when she comes on, and she can get into more detail on that for you. And then lastly, we have the Department of Veterans Affairs that of all the certifications, that one is absolutely the least troublesome one to do. So I asked the Washington Department of Enterprise Services to provide me with some documentation, and this is what they sent me, which is hard to read. So I translated it into this little spreadsheet. And what I would like you to see or recognize is that since 2003, there has been tremendous growth on active businesses, overall in Washington WEBs. The small business requirement was instituted after 2003. OMWBE, has grown a lot, and the veteran-owned small business wasn't even a thing until about 2014. So you can see that there's some potential there for you to be registered under any of those and certified if you qualify for any of those subsidiaries. The other thing that we get questions on, well, what's the definition of a small business? So 50 or fewer employees or revenue less than 7 million after each of the past 3 consecutive years, or certified by OMWBE. A mini business, revenue between 1 and 3 million. A micro business is revenue less than 3 million. Okay, let's talk about the Department of Enterprise Services. I put some links on here, and this presentation with clickable links will be available to you, so you don't have to try to write all this down. But if you're researching what contracts there are for the Department of Enterprise Services, I have that there. To register, it's a really simplified system to register under the Department of Enterprise Services. I have the link there, and you will need to determine your own commodity codes, and you can do that by keyword search. And then make sure that you sign up for email alerts. They'll let you know if there's a landscaping opportunity. So this is a screenshot of the Washington WEB's application form, name, address, ownership, and certifications, and that's it in a nutshell. So one of the questions that we got beforehand are like, what are the advantages and challenges of each level of government? And what I did is I put together a little spreadsheet with a rating of 1 to 5, like bidding competition. 1 means it's extremely small, 2 means it is small, 3 is medium, 4 is fairly large, and 5 is extremely large. So on bidding on a small town, you have very small competition. Paperwork, you're going to have just a small amount. It probably will not be extremely small. And the odds of requiring government certification will be determined by the small town that you're in. Odds are, they won't have any requirements on there. The biggest challenge is finding the opportunities. And so as you go down this scale, cities, counties, regions, state, and federal. Okay, federal, the bidding competition is global. And the paperwork is a lot. And the certification process is tedious, and you have to renew it all the time. So this kind of gives you some perspective as to, how these things kind of play out together. So in regards to certifications, the one thing that you need to know is if you're certified at the state or the federal level, they do not talk to each other. So if you are certified as a woman-owned small business at the federal level, you have to go through the certification process through OMWBE to be state certified. And same thing with veterans, the minority certifications. The hub zone, there is nothing currently similar in the state of Washington, but there's something coming down the road from the governor that they want OMWBE to look at something similar to hub zones, but maybe is not the same caliber as the federal one. Anyway, hopefully Amal will have some information for us on that. And if you're looking at Washington Department of Transportation and the US Department of Transportation, they both have similarities. And so if you get certified at the state level as a DBE, you can do federal projects also. And this is the alphabet soup on women business enterprises. And we'll let Amal work on that for you. And then one thing to remember, all the certification applications.
Leslie,
Yeah.
are we still supposed to be on the same screen?
It's the OMWBE page
Okay, just checking.
with the fees. Yeah.
No, it doesn't have the fees.
Oh, okay. Well, let me go back. Okay, now is it? Is it there?
It is not moving.
Really? Okay, let me unshare and reshare. Well, excuse me. Okay. Well, it won't. Okay, I'm frozen. It will not let.
Oh, no. Yeah, now we got it. Got it.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, okay. Anyway, OMWBE does charge a fee based on your corporate structure and the level of certification that you're looking for. And these are non-refundable. Let's talk about the Department of Veterans Affairs. This is actually pretty simple to get through. The requirements, you have to have 51% of the ownership has to be the veteran or a service member, and they have to control and direct or regulate the day-to-day operations. This next slide has the point of contact for the Washington State DVA, and the requirements. You have to have supporting documentations, which include your DD-214, your UBI number, your NAICS code. And if you're a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, you need your disability rating letter from the VA to qualify. And if you have any questions on this, you can ask PTAC or Jennifer Montgomery from the DVA. So in here, we have,
Okay,
a
you're
question
still
on
not
whether-
moving. It's not moving
Not-
again.
really? Okay, what do you see?
I see the OMWBE fee page.
Really? Okay. Did it move?
Nope.
Okay. Still not moving?
No, we can bring it up.
Okay, why don't you go ahead, do that, and then I will quit sharing. And we're the question right after the veterans. Oh,
Sorry, folks.
yeah,
Technology is great until it isn't, right?
yeah. So Terry wasn't the only one having problems today.
Right, and going.
And okay, so my Zoom has died.
Mhm.
You know, I have no visual.
Oh, no. So I'm on the DVA page.
Okay, so that is Jennifer Montgomery, and she is really good to work with. And the good thing about the Veterans Administration for the state of Washington is that they really prioritize the needs of the veterans, and she'll do everything in her power to get you through this process. Next slide is the question on what are the different levels of government. And then the next slide after that is a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, but a slide with all of the agencies listed on it. And as you can see, there are a lot of Navy facilities. Regionally, we have Joint Base Lewis McChord, Veterans Administration, and, you know, Housing, Urban Development, Forest Service, SBA, lots and lots of great resources. Next slide is, speaking of all of those resources, I brought up, I did some research on the federal spending for fiscal year 21. And to date, it's $8.5 trillion. And I listed the top 20 agencies on here. And the thing about this website is you can drill down, you know, if you're looking to do something with the US Navy, you can drill down in the Department of Defense, drill down to the US Navy, and, you know, find out, you know, what's happening in your area, filter it by state or region. And anyway, it's a good research tool for you. Next slide. This one is all about Washington State opportunities and primes and subs, and Public Works, USDOT, colleges and universities, Port of Seattle. You know, PTACs have an incredible amount of resources for you. And if you're interested in construction and you want to do job order contracts with the Department of Enterprise Services, check with PTAC and we can get you right on the road. Next slide. This is like the very best kept secret in the state of Washington, the Municipal Research and Services Center, MRSC. And if you are a small company and you are interested in providing services to fire districts, library districts, sewer districts, school districts, water districts, they have a small works roster, and they show all kinds of opportunities. So if that's where you wanted to start, that would be a good place. All right, next slide. What are the pitfalls and how do you avoid them? Pitfalls are lack of organizational skills, too much paperwork, not enough time, not enough money, not enough equipment, not enough people, not enough personnel in your office. So the answers to all of those are, how do you avoid those? 2 words, responsive and responsible. Responsiveness means you know how to fill out the paperwork. That means you're organized, you can get through the paperwork and follow the instructions to the letter and sign your bid and turn it in before the clock runs out. Responsibilities mean you have the capacity to actually perform the contract. You have enough money, be it credit line or, you know, cash in bank or whatever, you know, you have the capital to do a big project. You have the equipment and the infrastructure. If you're building a road, you have backhoes and belly dumps and scrapers and rollers, and you have people that can work the equipment. And then lastly, in responsibilities, it's hard to be a one-person band in your office doing everything. So you might have a project manager. You might have a project manager. So, all right, next slide. So that's the reality check. It takes a lot of dedication. You can't be naive. You know, there's so much going on. You can't be gullible as to the things that come across your desk. Your accountant and your HR manager probably need a raise. And we kind of talked about not being a one-person band. Next slide. All right. So questions, concerns, issues, any of that? And then the last slide is, this is PTAC's information. So all of this is available to you after the event tonight. And Kathy will actually get that out to you. So are there any questions? Kathy, can you see any questions?
I am not seeing any posted. They're
Oh,
probably
okay.
in overwhelm mode because we all know that it's a lot,
Yeah.
which
And,
is,
and that's the reality of this is, you know, this is just the reality check. And when you want to get into the minutia, you know, these are like all day classes, you know, to figure some of the stuff out. So this is just, okay, what am I getting myself into? And where do I go for help? So you put PTAC on your speed dial and we'll come and give you a hand. So, well, if that's it, and I'll be online here if anybody wants to, you know, type any questions in the chat. But with that, I think we will go ahead and move on to our next presenter. So we have Lydia Wilson from KLB Enterprises and Roger Newton from Newton Building and Development. And they are going to share their BIPOC owned government contracting experiences. And they won't have any PowerPoint that's going to cause any grief. So we'll turn this over to them and we'll let them figure out who comes up first.
Go ahead, Lydia.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lydia Wilson, and I'm the president of KLB Enterprises, and we're a 8A woman minority-owned small business, and we've been in business since 2004. We sell all types of supplies to the buyers, essentially anything and everything that they need, we try to source for them. anything from, inside or outside of buildings, offices, work sites, their ships. And we mostly sell to the federal government, but we do have other companies that we sell to, like Bechtel and NASCO and BAE. In fact, with Bechtel, we ended up meeting them like 5 or 6 years ago at Alliance, and they started using us then, and then we kind of dropped off the ladder with them, and then probably I'd say like 3 years ago, they found our name again, and now they use us a lot. They have all their buyers work with us, so that was, a great experience and a good, we learned about them and met them over at Alliance. So that was something that we were really happy about. And essentially for the longest time, we were self-certified. And it wasn't until probably like 3 years ago that we started looking into getting actually certified. And thanks to PTAC and KETA, they helped us with the process, because it is a really long process, but it's worth it at the end. They answered a lot of our questions. And let's see. Yeah, I just feel really blessed with all the opportunities that we've had and for the people that we've met along the way. It's really great working with all the different buyers. We've worked with buyers around the world. And yeah, once again, I'd like to thank the employees of KETA and PTAC for all the help and guidance that they've supplied to us for all these years. And if there's any questions.
I don't see any, but I'm just going to say you referenced Alliance. So she's talking about Alliance Northwest, which is the largest business to government event in Washington State. And if you just search for Alliance Northwest, you will find it. It's held in March. Hopefully it will be in person in 2022. We'll see. This year it was virtual. It was held, but it was virtual. And you have the opportunity to meet federal and state agencies as well as prime contractors. And so Lydia is both a prime supplier and a subcontract supplier, correct?
We mostly just we usually just have the contracts directly with the military.
Right, but with Bechtel, you're a sub.
Oh, for the, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if you guys have questions for Lydia, just type them in. She can watch for them, and we'll turn it over to Roger. And thank you, Lydia. We, of course, love our PTAC clients.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, good evening. I'm Roger Newton. I'm the owner and president of Newton Building and Development. We are a full service general contractor with nearly 20 years of experience doing federal construction projects. Our primary federal customer is the U.S. Navy, and that's why we located in Bremerton. But we also do work for, or have done work for, GSA, the Corps of Engineers, and the EPA. We have experience working as a prime contractor as well as a subcontractor to other primes. And we are a 8A graduate. We had a successful run in the program from 2005 to 2014. So from my perspective on construction contracts in particular for the feds, that's really been my focus. I spent the majority of my career both in this county and working in the federal marketplace. I've come to appreciate the structure that is involved with working with the federal government. Generally speaking, all parties know what the rules are, they know what's expected of them. However, there's a significant learning curve to understanding those rules, as might surmise given some of the earlier presentations. But once you do understand those rules, they're relatively static. They don't change drastically very often. And I've always felt that it provides guardrails for both parties. If you do the work you're contracted to do, your customer pays you. On the flip side, you should expect to be held to the quality standards and timeliness that you would agree to in your contract. In construction, most companies, construction companies probably perform as subcontractors, and they definitely start out that way. Some few eventually become primes, and are working directly with federal agencies. While the overall framework, regulations, general rules of the road are the same for subs and primes, there are some significant differences between the two groups. Subcontractors rarely have direct communications with the customer and are reliant on primes to relay information back and forth. As a sub, it can be difficult to become aware of contracting opportunities, as primes tend to hold their cards close to their chests, and many opportunities are not advertised to the general public. For example, on IDIQ contracts or MAC contracts. It's helpful to develop relationships with multiple prime contractors if you're going to get into this market, so that you've got more companies that you can bid to. And it can be difficult to get paid from some primes. It's always my preference to be a prime contractor. The government pays very well, they pay timely. Not all prime contractors are good partners to their subcontractors. And it's important to vet your prime contractors. It's very tempting to be seduced by a contract and not, do the background work to understand if this is a company you really want to do business with. As I mentioned, I had been in the 8A program, and I'm a big fan of that program. It helped my company expand and to build up enough capital so that we can compete in the open federal market now. Before I started my company, I worked with another federal contractor, and that allowed me to gain valuable experience, learn the ropes, and develop contacts and relationships with federal contracting officers. If you do get into the program, you want to be ready to hit the ground running. You do not want to waste any of the limited years that you have where you're eligible to receive set-aside contracts. I want to encourage everybody to get involved in the federal marketplace. It can be lucrative and rewarding. However, it is extremely important to study it and learn as much as you can before you jump into it. Talk to other business owners who have experience, network like crazy, understand what your company is good at and where your weaknesses are. Attend classes, seminars, etc., and always be open to learning. It is also very important to understand that your reputation matters a lot. We live in a relatively small community here on the peninsula, and there are only so many people and businesses actively involved in federal work. To that end, provide great customer service, cultivate long-term relationships, and play nice with others. You never know when a vendor or a competitor may turn into a customer. So with that, good luck to anyone who wants to get into it, and I'm happy to answer questions or be a resource in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Thank you, Lydia. And if we have questions for Roger and Lydia, who are real life success stories and amazing business owners who work with the federal government in two very different areas, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll circle back to them. We would like to transfer the stage and the microphone over to Amal Joury of the Office of Minority and Women's Business Enterprises. I think I got it right. I'm rolling the dice. Amal, thanks for joining us this evening. I think you're probably, where are you joining us from? Is it Olympia? Tell us more.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. You might regret giving me the mic and the stage because I sort of really love that and tend to talk a lot and can talk really quickly. So if I am moving too fast, please somebody raise a hand or flag it and just say slow down, because I get very excited about all things OMWBE and certification. I am coming to you from Olympia, from my charming basement office. I apologize ahead of time because I think the 7-year-old is returning from soccer practice and will probably show his face because he likes to be on camera too, just like me. Shocking where he gets that. Anyway, so we're here to talk about certification and OMWBE, and I will share my screen, and it won't be pretty, but it will be the slideshow. So I'm on multiple screens, so it'll look like I'm looking off in the distance, but I'm here with you. So this is sort of a certification 101 presentation. I'm really trying to get through the basics, high level of what it takes to be certified, what that means, what are some of the options, what are some of the requirements, but really it's about our mission. We'll talk a little bit about the mission of OMWBE, talk about what is certification, some of the cert types that we have, benefits to getting certified, and then the eligibility, which is really where the heart of certification comes into play, because what do you need to do to become certified? What do you need to show us? What do you need to have? Why is it so complicated? And then a little bit about the firm directory that we have, and then some time for questions if there are any. So OMWBE has been around since 1983. We were created to assist minority women business enterprises in state procurement and contracting to level that playing field. We are really excited about that. That is our passion. Everyone who works at OMWBE walks through the doors or the computer screens at this point, being really excited about the mission, about what we're trying to do, how we're trying to level that playing field, increase the spend at public agencies and higher ed institutions across the state, and help businesses get their certification and then be launched for future success. We've gone through some changes over the last few years, and we've come up with a new purpose, and a mission, a vision, value statement, and the purpose is a little new, so I'm going to read it. We've made it much more accessible. We really thought about what it means to be at OMWBE, and not just promoting equity in how Washington State spends its money, but what we want to represent for our business owners, and that is to be a vital and trusted resource for business owners to gain access, visibility, and contracting opportunities in procurement. And we want to eliminate barriers to equitable participation in public spending and contracting. That's a big ask, and we have a lot of really dedicated staff in many different areas at OMWBE. We are not just certification, although that is a really big piece of OMWBE. We have other incredibly important and valuable pillars that I will talk about. So being dedicated to eliminating systemic and institutional oppression in contracting in the state of Washington is a big job. We are also focused on driving innovation, strengthening and diversifying overall statewide economic growth, understanding that so much of Washington state is built on small businesses. That is a significant amount of jobs that are created, money that is flowing through our system. It comes from small businesses, and how we support those small businesses is incredibly important. We want to empower public entities, state agencies, to recognize the value of minority and women businesses, small businesses, and other underrepresented communities. And how do we do that? So we have 4 pillars. We have certification, which is what we'll really dive into. Certifying the minority and women-owned businesses, maintaining that directory so that it's up to date, it's updated in real time, so that state agencies, prime contractors, educational institutions, you can find firms to work with. None of this, oh, there's no one there, we can't find them. They're there and you can find them, and we will talk to you about how you find them. We have about 2,400 state certified firms and 1,400 certified federal firms under the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. That number was updated early September. That number changes over time, and we are steadily seeing some increases because we are focused on increasing the pool of participants through outreach and events like this. We have a supplier diversity team that is charged with reporting the annual spend that state agencies spend with certified firms. So that is an annual report. They work with all the state agencies, the educational institutions, and prime contractors even on what their inclusion plan is and what best practices they can use to improve those inclusion plans and then improve their spend with certified businesses. That is a big undertaking. It is meeting with a lot of people. It is encouraging them to use the directory, think outside the box, be creative in how they look at firms. Do they unbundle contracts, making more opportunities for more firms? We also have the Link Deposit Loan Program, which is specific for state certified businesses. There are 11 participating banks across the state, and it is an access to capital program for state certified firms. They can receive a reduced interest rate on qualifying loans up to 2%. And there's about $175 million available in loans for small businesses, for capital projects, for equipment, for office buy, like go work with the banks. The bank will be the one who is finalizing the loan, and they have they hold the terms of the loan. But if you're OMWBE certified, you are eligible for that reduced interest rate. We also have the Governor's Subcabinet on Business Diversity. So this was a big push from the governor's office. They wanted the big 6 agencies to connect and meet and talk about big picture solutions, supporting and educating state agencies, prime contractors, educational institutions on those best practices, how to improve contracting with certified firms, and tailoring their efforts to be more inclusive. So that group of individuals meets regularly, and they recently launched the toolkits that are available on our website and for individuals to look at and for state agencies to review, so that when supplier diversity comes around and starts talking about inclusion plans, there's additional support from this diversity subcabinet. But what are we really here to talk about? We're here to talk about certification. So we certify small businesses that are owned and controlled by minorities, women, and other disadvantaged individuals. We certify businesses to increase contracting opportunities for those businesses with state and local governments. We manage 2 types of certification. So there's the Federal Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, federal program under U.S. Department of Transportation, and then the state program. Under the U.S. DOT, we have an interagency agreement with WSDOT, and that we do the certification for those firms seeking federal certification so that they can bid on contracts and projects that are funded using U.S. Department of Transportation dollars. So thinking about where the money comes from for that certification. So we can't limit the types of businesses that request and apply for certification, but primarily we see businesses seeking the DBE program who are in the transportation business because they're going to be bidding on those bigger transportation projects. We do the Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, ACDBE. That is specifically for those businesses who are providing goods and services to the traveling public. And that includes rental car businesses, Those have slightly different program requirements in terms of their size, because those businesses are typically much larger than what we think of as a small business. And then we have our small business enterprise, which is a race and gender neutral program. On the state side, we have the different alphabet soup, as you can see. We have the MBE, the MWBE, the WBE, the CBE, and the SEDBE. All of those programs on both state and federal certification have certification criteria and requirements. We hope that certification benefits firms, and we believe it does, because it helps you get visual with agencies, with prime contractors, with projects that are coming through. You're on the certified directory, you're easily found. Certain federally funded transportation projects have mandatory goals, which is really important. State agencies and higher ed institutions have supplier diversity goals. And then we have private companies that are also using WBE certified firms to fulfill their supplier diversity goals. So while we don't have mandatory goals on the state funded projects at this time, we do have voluntary goals. We work with agencies and with cities to help them figure out, okay, can we have a goal on this project? What does it look like? We're going to try and achieve a greater diversity of businesses that have certification on this project. What makes a business eligible for certification? This is similar on the federal side and the state side. So we have tried to ensure that the two programs, while not completely identical, have very similar requirements so that businesses are not being asked wildly different questions on the two different certifications. You can apply for federal certification under the DBE program, and at the same time, mark a little box and say you also want to be considered for state certification, and we will fast track, because the information in the federal application is similar enough to what we ask for in the state that we can use the same information for both. You can't go the other way. I can't use state information for the federal, because those have requirements that I can't change. The form and the personal net worth requirement form specifically are federal documents that I can't alter. The state side, they're ours. So if you are interested in certification and you don't know which one you want, we recommend starting with DBE, fast tracking the state, and then figuring out later if you're not bidding on federal programs, you can remove that certification and you still have the state certification. So we're looking for for-profit businesses. Nonprofits, we don't certify nonprofit organizations. Businesses need to have gross receipts under 23.98 million. Total revenues for average revenues for the last 3 years. So we look at tax returns going back 3 years. They must be licensed to do business in Washington state. So we check Secretary of State, we check Department of Revenue, we check to make sure that you are okay to do business in Washington. The business must be woman or minority owned. What does that mean? That's at least 51% ownership. It can be combined. You can have multiple owners, 3 owners who are women, 1 who is a man, and the ownership percentage of those 3 women, we would rely upon that to get to 51%. We have to show that there's a financial investment, either capital, money, or expertise. Expertise has some really specific criteria to it, which you can find in the rules, or one of the analysts on my team will happily explain that, but it is very specific. Typically, we see a financial contribution. Smaller businesses, brand new startups, just out of the gate, sometimes the contribution is here's the receipt for the $50 I spent at the Secretary of State to get my license, or here's the computer I bought, or the new specialized program, or I bought a dump truck for $5,000 with cash from my savings account. Here's the transaction. We look at control. This is a big piece of certification, is ensuring that the 51% owner not only understands the business, but they actually have experience within that field. They don't have to have the most experience. They can have employees who are 20-year veterans of contracting, but as long as that individual can show that it is more likely than not that at the end of the day, they control the overall business, that they have enough experience to make policy decisions for the business that make sense, and they are not overly reliant upon somebody else, we can probably certify them. So legal operational control over the business, they have to be an independent business. So we look at whether or not the business that is applying for certification has a relationship with other businesses that would impact their ability to be independent. Are they relying upon the equipment, the staff, the warehouse, the anything like that of another business that would say, well, I'm not really sure that you yourself are independent. You might just be acting like another part of this larger business that doesn't qualify for certification. So we look at that. And we look at the personal net worth of the individuals. They have to have a personal net worth of under 1.32 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. And you can get there quickly because we look at property. We look at property that's not your primary residence. We look at retirement funds. We look at a number of different assets that you might have. If you own other businesses, the value of those other businesses that you're not getting certified, that counts towards your personal net worth. If a spouse owns a business in Washington State because of community property, we will ascribe 50% of the value of that business to your personal net worth unless you are able to show us that that property is separate. So it is a significant amount of information that we ask for. However, when you do start your application on OMWBE.gov, you start or renew an application. I'm so grateful for Leslie for saying, don't use your social security number if you're starting an account with us, because it's legal. We just don't recommend it because information is shared with state agencies under data sharing agreements. Our information is completely secure through our online portal, but it is just a better practice not to use your social security number. You complete all the applications online, you upload all the documents online, and you can always reach one of the certification analysts every day. Here comes a 7-year-old. Sorry for the interruption. You can reach our analysts all the time. People answer the phone all the time. Honey, I'm on a call. Okay, bye. Sorry, Oliver. We ask for a significant amount of documentation for firms to go through that certification criteria. We're looking for tax returns, the state net worth statement. We're looking for operating documents, resumes, proof of investment, lists of equipment. It can take up to 60 days to do a certification for state and 90 days for a federal certification. And I have to do an on-site visit. We've been doing the on-sites virtually, which is incredibly helpful, means we can move through things a little bit faster. But that 90 days, so if you're looking to get certified and bid on a contract that has just come up, it's not going to happen. We don't have an expedited process. It does take that amount of time to get certified, plus the on-site visit itself. We will ask additional information questions of applicants if we don't have enough information, if we have questions that come up while we're doing our review. And the faster that our applicants can respond to those questions, the faster we can complete certification. Once the firm is certified, it appears in the directory. It is real-time updates. The minute it's certified, it goes up there. It can be searched, it can be found. The directory is designed to help buyers and contracting officers locate certified firms. We do have an entire program of a presentation on how to navigate the directory and search, use the search terms, use the type of certifications, and that I'm happy to send that information or even present that if you'd like. And that is my super rapid fire. I was supposed to be done at 7:11 and I am. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. And apologies for the drum banging in the background. Someone decided that this was a brilliant time to start the drum set. And you all met Oliver.
Well, Oliver is adorable. And we've all been there with, a dog, cat, kid, spouse, partner. We've all been there. We're all used to it. And we just kind of go with the flow now, right?
Yep. That's the only way to do it. So, but if anyone has any questions, please, you can email me at amalj@omwbe.wa.gov. You can check on our website. My information is there too, or you can shoot a question into the chat box and I can answer that.
Okay. And Amal, if you can just put your contact info in the chat, that'd be great as well. And so now on the final session, and then if folks still do have questions, we will have a few minutes at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to the KETA counselors that you would work with if you're here in Kitsap or Leslie. And it's going to be Terry will do the presenting, Terry Homburg. He's a retired contracting officer with multiple places that he's been, most recently when he retired at NAVFAC, and he started volunteering for us almost immediately. We're thankful for that. And then Mary Jo Juarez is our paid PTAC counselor, and she also retired from NAVFAC as the small business deputy. So if you are interested, especially in doing business with the Navy, we have counselors here that can answer and tap into their relationships. So Terry, if you want to unmute, and I think I need to bring your thing up because Teresa was having a challenge with her Zoom. So let me get your program up.
Right, so while we're waiting for that, Mary Jo Juarez and I are going to present this next and last segment for this evening, and it's on federal government socioeconomic certifications. If there's only one thing you take away, it would be the following, and this is reemphasizing what Leslie mentioned earlier, is that the federal government doesn't accept certifications from the states, and the states don't accept certifications from the federal government. So if you're interested in getting contracts from the state and from the federal agencies, you need to get certifications from both of them. And last comment before we get started is, as I go through the presentation, please jot down your questions. There'll be a question and answer period after the completion of this segment. Go on, next slide. So what I've done here on this next slide is identified all 7 of the federal government social economic certifications. So just running down through the list, there's the small business, there's 2 for veteran-owned small businesses, there's 2 for women-owned small businesses, and there's the Hub Zone Small Business Certification, and lastly, the SBA, Small Business Administration 8A program. Next slide. So what I'm going to do is talk about each one of these on the following slides. So the next one is small business. The federal agencies determine if you're a small business by your NAICS codes, which is the North American Industrial Classification System. And you go to down below there, you'll see I provided the website to determine your NAICS codes, and you can have more than one. You go to the other website that are provided there, and that's your size standard. For every NAICS code, there is a size standard. It could be either manufacturing, for manufacturing, it's the number of employees, or if it's any of the others, service industries, it would be in millions of dollars. And that's on an average currently of 3 years, and soon it will be based on average over 5 years. What I've done on each of these slides, as you can see here in red, I'm providing for you whether you self-certify or you have to get a certification from the SBA. So for small business, it's a self-certification. So when you go in to register in the System for Award Management, which we call SAM at sam.gov, you can go in there and self-certify that you're a small business after you've looked up your NAICS code and found out whether it's your number of employees is less than the threshold, or your millions of dollars that you are making each year on average is a small business. Next slide. Next one is the veterans. So there's two of them. There's the veteran-owned small business and the service-disabled veteran-owned small business. The Veterans Administration is currently the agency that is providing the criteria and eligibility that you can certify yourself as a veteran-owned small business or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. One note there is the veteran must have at least 51% controlling interest. And I noted in red here that once you go through the va.gov website and determine that you meet the qualifications, you can then go into sam.gov and check the box self-certifying that you're either the veteran-owned small business or the service-disabled veteran-owned small business. And I've provided the internet website there for you to go to va.gov to check those qualifications. Next slide is for women-owned small businesses. And there are two categories. There's the women-owned small business and the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. A women-owned small business is self-certifying. Small Business Administration has identified 444 NAICS codes. And if you have any one of those NAICS codes, you might want to consider submitting an application for a certification by the Small Business Administration. That certification is free through the SBA. For the economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, certifications can be done by a third party, or you can go through the SBA. Of note there, if time is of the essence that you need to get a certification quickly, you might want to go through a third party because the SBA is short-staffed at this time and it's taking longer to get those certifications through the SBA. So that's a business decision on your part. Also on the women-owned small business certifications, the woman has to have at least 51% controlling interest. And I provided the website there. It's at certified.sba.gov to learn more about women-owned certifications. Next slide is, Mary Jo, you had a comment on women-owned small businesses?
I did. I have a comment on the women-owned small business and the service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Both of those programs in the federal government have historically had a lot of fraud in them. And at one point, I actually volunteered and went out and did site visits for one of the third-party providers. And if you are going to apply for those certifications, make sure that if you are the woman or you are the veteran, you are the person who knows the most about that business. You are the one who's making, as was discussed earlier, all of those decisions for hiring, for contracts, and can show that you're actually controlling it. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Mary Jo. So moving on to the next certification, it is Hub Zone Small Business. Hub Zone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. It's there's a number of ways that a hub zone could get established. The biggest one is every 10 years, the United States does a census. And most of you know that we just completed a census this past December. Typically, the results of that comes out the following December, which would be now December of 2021. Other hub zones are Indian reservations, natural disaster areas, and each of the state's governors, the governor of each state can designate areas also. In Kitsap County, we have approximately 6 hub zones right here locally. So that's something for you to consider if your business and your 35% or more of your employees are living in a hub zone. So I've also identified the requirements here. You have to be a small business. You have to have at least 51% owned and controlled by any one of those following organizations. Have a principal office located in a hub zone, and at least 35% of your employees living in a hub zone. This certification identified in red is not self-certifying. You do have to get a certification through the Small Business Administration. I provided the 2 websites down below for you to check out the certifications. Also, that first internet website is the hub zone map. I find that very useful because you can find if you're in a hub zone in one of 2 ways. It opens up with a map of the United States, and you can zoom into your location and find the hub zones. Or in the upper left-hand corner, you can type in your address, and over in the upper in the upper left-hand corner, you type in your address, and in the upper right-hand corner, it says whether you are or are not in a hub zone. So I find that a very useful website. Next slide is the last certification we're going to talk about tonight is the Small Business Administration 8A program. It's for socially and economically disadvantaged individuals or entities. It's a 9-year program, as Mr. Newton identified. His company went through that and graduated in 2014. Qualifications: you have to be a small business. You can't previously have been a participant in the 8A program. You have to have at least 51% owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen who are socially and economically disadvantaged. It requires both socially and economically disadvantaged. There are some monetary figures there also. You have to have a personal net worth of $750,000 or less. Have an adjusted gross income of did I say that correctly? The first one, personal net worth of less than $750,000, adjusted gross income of less than $350,000, and have less than $6 million in assets. And lastly, you have to demonstrate good character and potential to perform the contracts. Continuing on to the next slide are the benefits of the SBA 8A program. Mainly is for set-asides and single source contracts. I'll explain the difference between those 2. If a federal agency finds enough 8A contractors and it's over the threshold, whether it's construction or service contractors, different thresholds, then they can set aside the procurement for only 8A companies. Single source, if it's under a threshold, the federal agency, say for example, construction is $4 million. If their government estimate is less than $4 million, and the federal agency finds you as a construction contractor, you're in the 8A program, they can send a request for proposal just to you. That's a single source. You submit a proposal and negotiate a fair and reasonable price, and you get the award of contract. So what we're saying here is limiting competition. You have fewer companies that you're competing against. And single source, it's just you and the federal agency negotiating a price and getting the contract to work. So that's a great benefit. You get a lot of business opportunity, or business opportunity specialists can be assigned to you from the SBA to help you navigate through federal contracting. You can form joint ventures with established businesses through the SBA mentor protege program. So that can be like you can team up with a large business, and they will help you learn about federal contracting and even learn more about the industry that you're in, give you some more experience. The SBA can give you management and technical assistance, which includes free training, counseling, marketing assistance, and higher level executive development. It's a great program. The whole intent of the SBA 8A program is for you to graduate after 9 years and be able to compete with large business. This is a certification I've identified in red that the SBA, you submit an application, they review it. If you get accepted into the program, you get a certificate that you're an 8A contractor and are assigned a number. I've provided the website there for you to learn more about the 8A program. Next slide. So federal certifications by the numbers. As of the 3rd of September, not too many days ago, we did a little search and came up with these figures for you just to see how many companies have these certifications. So we start out with the small business, veteran-owned small businesses, followed by the women-owned small businesses, HubZone, and the SBA. The next column is how many companies in the United States have that certification. So for example, veteran-owned small business, there's over 59,000 in the United States. Next column, there are 949 of them are in the state of Washington. And in the last column, 64 of those are in Kitsap County. So that's how you read that table there. Next slide, resources. So here I'm providing you 4 websites. One is our Washington PTAC. Next one is our YouTube videos and our webinars and the website for the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. Next slide. If you want to get some assistance and more details, you can contact your local PTAC office. And for this Olympic Peninsula, that's the Olympic Peninsula, it's Kathy Kokas. There's her phone number and her email address. That ends this segment. We'll open it up now to questions and answers for all of the speakers.
So Terry, I just wanted to mention that regardless of if you're woman-owned or economically disadvantaged woman-owned or veteran-owned, service-disabled veteran-owned, 8A, one of the requirements will be for you to fill out the SBA personal finance statement. And the thing is, in the state of Washington, because it's community property state, you have to realize that you have to divide everything, all your assets in half in order to complete this correctly. And then both you and your spouse, have to submit this. So if you are going as an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, the half that belongs to your spouse does not come into play for the certification, as does the veteran side also, or 8A. And so Amal, does that apply the same with OMWBE on the women business enterprises and the minority business enterprises?
Sort of. Yes, mostly. We use the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, the USDOT Transportation, Department of Transportation personal net worth form. It has specific, it's not quite the same as the SBA one. We have seen people trying to submit the SBA one, but we can't use that. The information is pretty clear. The directions are make sure that this is your information. We typically will ask because the application asks if you are married. And then if it is unclear whether or not the information presented in the personal net worth is simply that of the 51% or more owner, we will ask for clarification. Things like other businesses that are owned, like I said, if I'm married, I'm applying for WBE, my husband has his own business, if we don't have a separate property agreement or something in place that says, that's mine, this is yours, then half of that business, I'm entitled to it legally. So if we got divorced, I could say, I mean, that's really broad strokes, right? Like, we don't know, but essentially I can claim half of his business, especially if it was started during marriage and all of that information. If businesses were started before marriage, then those are considered separate property and I don't need additional information. But it really depends on what it is we're looking at and asking for. Some of the information that we get is very clear that it is owned by one party and not another. We look at things like trusts, because trusts will show up, if they're done correctly, they'll show up on a tax return. We will ask to see the trust document to say who's the beneficiary, who's the grantor, who's the grantee, because if it's a revocable trust that I've put in place for my benefit, and it's not, the assets are X, Y, and Z, that's my personal stuff. Just because I put it in a trust doesn't mean I don't count it. So we look at all kinds of different pieces. So it's very case by case. It's very detailed. It is not an easy process because we are trying to determine that an individual is under that threshold. And then add on top of that, the federal and state, both programs, both have this catch-all rule of ability to accumulate substantial wealth. Well, what is that? Those are, I may be under 1.32 million, but then you look at my tax returns, my gross receipts are well above that $350,000 threshold for the last 5 years, averaging $1 million a year. But, I live in a houseboat and it's not worth anything and I have no other assets, but man, my bank account is happy. We look at that. We will look at, do you have access to credited capital? Maybe I've bought 12 rental properties up in King County, 30 years ago. But now they're worth millions. We look at all of that. So that's to sort of help say that, yeah, we will divide things in half, but if it's not clear, we're going to go digging, we're going to go asking, and we're going to figure out what the true story is to the best of our ability and within the parameters of the rules, which is more likely than not. So that's the lowest burden of proof. Doesn't have to be, we know for a solid fact, it's more likely than not that you meet these criteria. So long-winded answer.
Yeah.
I want to do a follow-up on the SBA 8A program. Mary Jo, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yes, from a PTAC perspective, if you're thinking about applying for the 8A program, please contact us. We can help you find the lists of documents that you'll need to pull together. And if we can help you get all of that information together ahead of time, it can help make the submission process a lot simpler. So feel free to reach out and contact us through Kathy.
And Mary Jo, Terry, Leslie, how many woman-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned applications have you reviewed over the years for clients?
A lot.
A lot. So that is a PTAC service that, yeah, if you have questions about your application, we are happy. And when I say we, I mean Terry, Mary Jo, and Leslie, to review your applications before you hit submit to kind of, get rid of maybe a delay because it wasn't complete.
Yeah, also to keep in mind with the federal certifications, I mentioned briefly in my segment that the SBA is undergoing quite a shortage in staff right now, and their time to review applications and get the certification issued is taking much longer now. Where it used to process in a matter of weeks, it's now 4 to 6 months. So keep that in mind. Don't get frustrated because you haven't heard anything from the SBA.
And the other thing I would say is that for these applications, they want to know a lot of personal and financial information. And if you're not prepared to share that, then this certification might not be for you.
That is a really great point, Kathy. And a lot of our questions, we are absolutely not intending to be offensive or troublesome in any ways. However, if it is unclear from an application that that 51% person in fact owns and controls, not just has been given 51% of a business by a spouse and then everything is great, they've got to be in that business and make those ultimate decisions. And if we start hearing, well, we decided together and we do this and we do that, then we're going to get a little bit concerned, because it should be, I do this, I run it, I'm in charge. And sometimes we will have to pull that out of people because they don't want to be disparaging to their spouse. We get it. You need, small businesses operate on shoestrings at the beginning and throughout it, and spouses offer a significant amount of support through bookkeeping, through managing bills, all of that. Unfortunately, the rules don't keep up with that kind of nuance. The rules are really specific. So when we ask individuals about their ability to control, we are not questioning their capabilities as a productive member and person and incalculable, invaluable member of that business. We need to know this because the rules ask us to find this information out and to be able to show, more likely than not, you, that 51% owner, own it and you control it. Not that you just own it and then your spouse has the plumbing license and you want to be a plumbing contractor. We can't do it.
Exactly.
Can't do it. So,
and Mary Jo alluded to that when she talked about a lot of fraud, especially on the federal level. We see a lot in woman-owned where someone will say, well, I want to give my wife the business so we can be woman-owned. And we're like, it doesn't work that way. So, you want to be able to follow the rules. So, Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out.
Thanks, Kathy. And I hope you see me. And if you don't, well, shoot.
We see, I see you.
Okay, well, it's great. I just want to thank everybody who presented tonight. Thank you so much to all our guest speakers for their hard work. We had 4 different sessions, from local entrepreneurs and business owners to state experts to our amazing PTAC crew and team. Leslie, Terry, Mary Jo, Kathy, of course. Really appreciate everything that everybody does. I want to thank Philip, Jeff, James, and Glenna. You're out there listening to us. Thanks for joining us this evening. Thanks to the other folks who had to drop off. We appreciate you. If you have any questions, you can email, well, heck, you can email me if you want. I'll put my email in the chat. It's morrison@kitsapeda.org. And if you have ideas on what else we can cover that's important to Black, Indigenous, and person of color owned businesses, let us know. We appreciate it. We're thinking about what we're going to do in 4th quarter. And October 19th, we are really hopeful that this is going to be in person or hybrid. We know that the numbers are high in Kitsap right now and elsewhere in the state for coronavirus caseloads. But we've got an amazing guest speaker planned. It's really going to be amazing. 1 to 5 p.m. in Bremerton at the waterfront at the conference center, and there will be a digital option to attend as well. Thanks for your time this evening. We appreciate you. We're one Kitsap. We're different from Bainbridge to Bremerton and parts beyond, but we're all part of the same community. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for attending, and thank you for your volunteerism, folks.
Thank you.
Bye night.
thank you.